All right, continuing on with the questions here. YouTube user Pepsi Rules 92 asks, I'm thinking about going into computer network administration in college. Is there any wisdom you could pass on about that? Yeah, don't. Quite honestly, I would say do your best to know what you can about the equipment you're working with. A lot of hands-on experience is what did it for me. I got old computers and I ran software on them. I got newer computers, I ran software on them. I've always been a real, kind of self-taught person. I could sit down with a book and a computer and the software, or even just blind experimentation, the online documentation. I could set it up and I could get familiar with it and I could get running. And once I'd gotten things up and running, basically, I might go out to a user-to-user forum and ask for more information, and then I might actually go on to help other people use the software. The one thing about network administration on a professional basis, at least the thing that I've noticed, I've done both. I do freelance consulting for a lot of home users and things like that. Nice thing about freelancing is that you can pick the jobs you want and forget about the ones that you really don't, like the people who reinfest their computers with Bonzi Buddy every 5 minutes or something like that. Whereas when you do network administration at work and something goes down, more often than not, it's perceived to be your fault and you should have fixed it yesterday. Of course, some people might vary in their experience, but in my experience, it's a job. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad to have my job. It makes possible a lot of the frivolity that you've seen here on YouTube. It makes it possible for me to have things that I like. But in general, I'm just happier if I could support myself doing the freelance consulting. That is definitely what I would prefer to do. I'm not going to say don't do it because, when you solve a problem, if you like to solve problems for people, it's a glorious feeling. I hope that's somehow helpful. I really don't know what to tell you for sure because I did not go to college. My education was the mandatory public schooling, grades 1 through 12 and all that jazz. And I didn't really like it. I had a hard time going through school. Swingman1937 writes in with a question about what was the original purpose of buying the Roach Palace. I think I kind of touched on this in my general questions video. Really, the purpose behind buying the Roach Palace was so that we could control the rest of the block, our side of the street, and have more room to put our things and work on our projects and, more possibilities for getting into trouble with the city. The Roach Palace is going to eventually be torn down. I was initially going to save it, but in a lot of ways it is just too far gone, and right now it's a storage unit. I hope that clears up the mystery for a fellow Midwesterner, and thank you for asking. YouTube user CWM880, I answered one of his questions already. I have lived in Illinois my whole life. Number 2, is my hair naturally that curly? Well, when I grow it out, yeah, it sure is. It's just what you see right here. No additives, no fillers, no styling. Heaven forbid I style my hair. That's not really my kind of thing to do. So, YouTube user GarrisGates asks about, says, never mind the grain truck, how about the Hendrickson parked behind it? The Keykeeper's channel is over that way. You're looking for Walsh Monster 2005. He says he's going to play with it. It's a big old diesel tractor. Maybe he'll get it running, maybe he won't, but it'll almost certainly be interesting, especially if he ropes me into this contest that he's really, I guess, trying to get me to get involved in. YouTube user Pacific Coast asked another question. I think this was another question, Annie. How did you learn so much about computers, particularly about hardware design and the various electronic components? Well, as I've said before, I'm largely self-taught. That means I read a lot of books. In particular, one of the books that I started out with and that I found to be an invaluable reference in a lot of ways was the Reader's Digest Fix-It-Yourself book from the late 1970s. They published another edition in 1996 of the same book, and if you could get your hands on a copy of those, that'd be a good place to start because that explains how a lot of household objects work. Now, as far as electronics go, I went to the Science Electronics Repair Frequently Asked Questions, the SER FAQ, or FAQ if you prefer. You can search that up online and find it. There's an enormous amount of good information there about how many of the electronic items in your household work, what goes wrong with them, and of course, pesky hair, how you can fix them. As far as electronic components, I've read a lot of data sheets. I've studied the basic classes. My mother was teaching at a community college in the area, and they threw out a bunch of books several years ago on basic electronics theory from the library. And there was nothing wrong with any of these books, and they were quite an interesting resource. So that's how I came to know what I know about hardware design and the various electronic components. I've also been unafraid to take anything apart. From the time that I was a youngster up until today, I have had a golden screwdriver at my side, and it didn't take too long to learn that whatever I took apart, I needed to be able to get back together, preferably before my parents got home. YouTube user Naruto90123 writes in to ask, how did you get the smarts to repair just about anything? First video I watched, how to repair a motherboard. Second, putting a computer in the dishwasher. Where do you come up with these things? Well, a lot of that is covered in my previous answer to YouTube user Pacific Coast just a couple of moments ago. As far as doing some of the more offbeat things like the dishwasher, I decided I had nothing to lose. What could it possibly hurt? It already wasn't something I was terribly interested in keeping, so I suppose if I screwed it up completely by putting it in the dishwasher, I'd just have to part it out or recycle it, and, maybe I was going to do that anyway. So I hope that answers your question. YouTube user Jeffrey B304 asked a question, and I'm still not sure I totally understand what's being asked here. Is there anything you feel noteworthy that you have no interest in? Well, I guess the only thing that I can think of that might fit that question is a relationship. I'm really not looking to have a relationship with anybody. I'm very much an independently spirited person. I like to be able to do my own thing. I like to have the things around the house that I want to have. I just don't think I'd be happy with any kind of lifelong companionship of any sort. So I guess that's the closest I can come to answering that question. If there's anything noteworthy, a lot of people are in some kind of relationship or another. But at least not at this time do I feel that I want one. What other questions? Oh, I've got to scroll up a little bit here. JoyTech23 asks, why in all your other videos do you sound like you're 60, but now when your face is on the camera you sound so much different? I'm kind of surprised that people still ask this. I actually record my videos with a multitude of different devices, and videos like this one are actually recorded on my MacBook laptop computer. And in that case, the audio quality is much better from the MacBook's built-in microphone, whereas the Panasonic DMC TZ3 camera that I shoot almost everything else with tends to roll off the high end in the audio and make me sound different.